All right. Thank you for your comments in the other hack video. Great response. I appreciate it. It lets me know what y'all want, and it sounds like you want more hacks. So more deal hacks, more money hacks, and I share those a lot here. Obviously, sharing a lot of those on the Patreon, but you also want some travel hacks and some dating hacks, and so we're gonna mix all of those. This is one of the case studies that I will be talking about in the upcoming Media Mogul training. It's just a very cool deal, and I think y'all will appreciate the story behind it as well. We're going to get into how in the world, I'm a decent looking dude, but I'm not the kind of dude that is going to have 100 women lined up outside of a hotel waiting on them. How, Ace? How? And it's all because of deals, man. It all boils down to deals, right? Cheers. All right, so let's jump into the first part of this. I think one of the things when it comes to deal making in general, for me, it's all about lifestyle. I learned the lesson very early on that that things could be hacked, and so I've always looked through things with the lens of, okay, how can this be hacked? And it started with the very foundation of me doing deals and realizing that there was this hack where you could buy the income that you created. And that's what business buying was for me. I realized at 20 years ago that nobody had ever told me all of this time. No one had ever told me that if I wanted income, I didn't have to just go to school, try to get a job for income. I didn't have to take the risk of starting a business and trying to build it up over time and losing money and sleep and dropping all this energy and stress into this business so that one day I could hopefully make income. Nobody had ever told me that I could just buy a business, look for the business that made the income that I wanted to make. And just like I buy a house, just like I buy a car, I could buy that. And so that wasn't this thing that now it's interesting that it's become of just like, okay, buying businesses, but then fitting into just the normal way of life. It was, okay, this is a hack for me to be able to design the life and the lifestyle that I want to create for myself. And so that was the true mind shift. The true mind shift for me was, oh, just like this hack is out there, this is like the money hack or the income hack. There are all of these other hacks. There are investment hacks, but then there's going to be these lifestyle hacks. Like, I don't have to live life the way that people say you have to live. And it's really cool now to see things like the passport bros and people living overseas. And so that was one of my other hacks was, 12, I guess, man, all these years made me feel old. But yeah, that's been about 14 years that I started living overseas. And that became this other kind of arbitrage, as some people call it, and hack. And so it's interesting for me now because I kind of get lumped into the business buying space. But I think now what business buying has become is just a way to live a normal life. It's funny. One of my favorite books was The 4 Hour Work Week, and one of the biggest paradigm shifts for me was him talking about the old fat rich guy who's in his drop top sports car with the top down, riding around town and trying to live it up. But he's given up all of his years like building this big business and all these things and really it's just now trying to figure out how to create a lifestyle. And the lifestyle really isn't what he wants yet. He hasn't figured out how to live the lifestyle that he wants. He's kind of been told that, oh, like if you get a sports car, that's going to be cool. I think that was one of the things that early on I was experimenting with lifestyle. So I had the Mercedes and the Audi sports car and just the other 4x4 cool old school truck Dodge Ram. It was just a lot of stuff and beautiful house and all these things. But the thing I realized, like, wait a minute, this is what they're selling me. This is a bill of goods. But I think what's happening now, even worse, is business buying and kind of business and the training is like money for the sake of money, which is even worse than like money for at least the sake of like sports cars, that kind of thing, which is still horrible. It's not really the life that you think you want. Most people get that and they realize like, oh man, this is like nothing. I have a friend of mine who just recently had won't say came into $50 million. He did a deal and got wealthy, and like literally got this like really cool car, all this stuff, and like instant was like, you know what? I am just as happy in like a brand new Honda. Like I had an old Honda. Like I'm taking this back. I just want a newer Honda. So those are some of the lessons that I think from a lifestyle standpoint that it's really good to start experimenting very early on. And what's happening in the business buying world is it's like, oh, more money, just get more money. We're going to do more deals and more money, as opposed to just, no, this is a hack to live the life that you want. And, all respect to the guys like Hermosi, Cody Sanchez, just those followers like, I'm going to get $1 billion. If y'all follow, if you're in the Patreon, but also if you just follow here, that at the end of the day, it's just monopoly money. It's some the same way that some old white guy came up with Monopoly, the game, and that money. So a bunch of old white dudes came up with the dollar and the peso and all those other things. So I think it's important to realize like this is just a game to be played, and you don't want to to take up a bunch of your life trying to. The goal is just to hack the get the money, not to spend your life trying to get a bunch of these bunch of monopoly money. There's just no difference. Just that more people have agreed to accept different things for that monopoly money than the other monopoly money. And that is just a very, very crucial thing that I think I had to go through that lesson very early on. And so I try to get that through to people. Like, let's get the money thing solved, not spend your life on the money thing. And I love helping people to solve that. But the idea of like having, this sacrificing this beautiful thing that we call life and my soul and my energy and this magical thing that God gave me as a gift, I'm not going to trade it in for monopoly money. So we look at most people, what they're talking about when it comes to buying business, not really about creating the life that you dream and really starting to hack and design a life that you want, and that takes trying things, testing things. I was just talking to Andrew; he's looking at moving to Bogota, which is really cool. And so that's the thing that I love is like, hey, let's get you making money, let's get that done, and now let's figure out like what's the life that you want to live. Now, do you have to sacrifice first? Yeah, and I get to see the people that do that, but that's what I love doing with my clients. Certainly not convincing them that getting the most monopoly money before they die will somehow make them happy. It's a very sad life. Don't be sad. Don't live a sad life, guys. My few followers, let's live some really beautiful lives over here. So the reason that the hack is valuable is that it opens your eyes. It opens your eyes that you don't have to live the way that the other people are playing the game, and that there's an endless number of possibilities. It's really limited by your creativity. And it's one of the reasons that also I love talking to clients and helping clients. We've got a acquisition whole code call coming up. Got one of the members who's in the oil and gas space working on a very cool deal, and then everybody else gets to hear us. I was like, hey, let's not have this conversation on the one-on-one. Let's have this conversation in front of everybody else, and we're going to talk about how you can structure this beautiful no money down oil and gas energy deal. And I think it's just things that people don't even know that are possible, baby. So I've talked here a little bit about it, but when it comes to traveling and trying to figure out where you want to spend time, if you haven't checked it out, I actually wrote an article on the 7 different types of locations that you want. And for different reasons, like there's places where I basically just put 3 countries in these 7 different categories. These are the only 3 countries where I like to diversify and put my money. Here's where I like to buy business. Here's where I like to have fun. Here's where it's great to all of these different things. And so one of my favorite places to have fun, especially in the past, a little bit less now, but I guess the what we're going to talk about today was that 6 7 years ago. And at that point, I was definitely making the huge transition to realizing, all right, how can I leverage this tool of money to start to build the lifestyle that I want? I think, the word tool is really important. It's almost like some people are making the goal of getting a tractor trailer. Let's say I want to get a tractor trailer. That's my goal. Like I'm going to get this tractor trailer, and that is the end goal. It's like, okay, I'm going to get this tractor trailer, and now I got it. It's like the only reason for a tractor trailer is to use it. Like, are you going to take loads? Are you going to do you have a broker you're working with? Like what are you going to? Are you going to put a driver in it, and you're going to make passive cash flow? There's a lot of things to do with a tractor trailer, but just to have it doesn't make sense. And so for most people, even when I'm looking at my businesses, I'm looking at them as a tool. And this is one of the big shifts is that, the business becomes this really cool tool where I want to maximize everything out of it. I was speaking to a mastermind last week, and one of the questions came up about creating a fund. And one of the reasons I don't talk much about funds is that, as I've done more and more funds, I realized that like each business really is a fund. Like there's just no business that I was looking at doing deals on where we get in and it's just like you're not looking at this business like a fund. You're not looking at this business like you've got all of these different assets and all these different things that you can use to the max. And so most people aren't even doing that. But then you can start to leverage it to obviously create the life you want. But then even when you consider the money, people are making the money the goal, and it's the same thing as making a tractor trailer the goal. It's like, what are you going to do with that? Like, the only reason to get a tractor trailer is to do something with it. The only reason to get any more money is to do something with it. And so you should know what that's going to be. And that could be, hey, I'm going to put it into this thing. I'm going to join the stealth. I'm going to join the wealth club so I can join stealth wealth trading, and I'm going to start to get passive income. Like, whatever the case may be, you've got that. You've got that hack. So now, if you look at dating, one of my cool hacks, I've used this in different cities all over the world in totally different ways, but using media is very, very powerful when it comes to dating. Because if you can become famous, and I should do, I gave a talk a little while back on, just what kind of being famous is, and using famous in specific industries, using famous in specific cities, and not trying to just get. Most people are like, I just want more followers, and it's like, but no, like that's not valuable. Like even with my following, I've got very specific followers for different businesses. We want very specific people. We want to get famous because the more targeted the space is that you're becoming famous, the more valuable it is. There are people that have 5 million followers, and we have seen them because we do deals in that space, and they're getting like zero income. You know what I mean? And then I know people that have 50,000 followers that are making millions because they have the right targeted people. And this is where media becomes really valuable if you know how to leverage that. So for most people, let me see what time. So for most people, they're looking at media from the standpoint of, what was the income of that media, or what can I sell to those people? But there's also all of these other kind of peripheral benefits. One of the benefits of media is just the being able to leverage the not just the notoriety, but the legitimacy, I guess you could say. So it's like you're getting legitimacy from that media. So at this time, 7 years ago, I had a media site, and I had a clothing kind of fashion business, and the fashion business had its own media that we were leveraging for some other deals and that kind of thing. So one of the parts of that media was following about 250,000 people that were in its Instagram. Now, the media side of things had the media actual business was a conservative news site. So this was a news site. It was in the conservative space, but it wasn't like it didn't try to overtly be conservative. It was kind of like undercover conservative. One of the guy was like, "Hey, when you buy this, like, there's some intense conservative people that are like members, that kind of thing. I probably wouldn't let them know that you're the owner," which is funny. This was 7 years ago, but just last few months, Jay and I were on a call, and the guy was like, "Yeah, so if y'all buy this business, it was in the conservative part of Florida. I probably wouldn't let them know that you're the owner." It's like, dude, and I could tell he was very like kind of nervous to tell us about it. He said it in the most funny way. He was like, "Yeah, like they don't like Obama." And they don't like people that like Obama, and I could tell what he wanted to say. They don't like people that look like Obama. But as y'all know from my other Argentina racist hack, I don't mind. I don't. Number one, I definitely don't mind making money from racist people. I don't even like. I don't mind having racist people help me date, help me get girls. I've used them for both, and yeah, I do not have a problem with either one of them. So we had this conservative site that was just a news site, and but it was like you could tell it was like serious. It had like real interviews. It was like a real site. It had been around for years. Now at the same time, we were doing to grow the fashion business. We had to do these photo shoots and all this different stuff with these models, and a lot of times it was a pain. Now, if they were a big influencer, we didn't mind it, but sometimes we just need to get the right shot, and trying to coordinate was just a complete nightmare. And so at that time, I'm actually in the process of moving to Medellin. And I realized, like, dude, I am in a city with some of the most beautiful women on the planet Earth, like known for the beauty of women. And what was happening at that time is that Venezuela was going nuts. And so Venezuela is probably the second country with the most beautiful women. And a bunch of them were coming in. So it's just like outrageous. Like you just walk out and you get numb to it because it's just like complete models everywhere you look. So I'm like, dude, I should definitely be able to get like just some models here to do the shoots with. And so the great benefit for me was being single at the time. I could also just meet models. So we I had an employee who would come down to Colombia as well, who was from Atlanta because before that we were in Atlanta. He was like, dude, I'm coming to Colombia. And fortunately, he spoke Spanish, which is like even better. So he was already from Latin America. So we ended up using those two pieces of media. So one on the one side, the news media site gave us legitimacy. So we wrote an article. We're like, oh, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned he was a part-time photographer. And so we're like, oh, like this photographer is made him sound amazing. He's coming to Colombia. He's going to be doing a shoot on this date at this hotel. Da, 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 da. It's amazing that he's coming down there. This is your chance if you're somebody who wants photos from a great photographer. He's going to be taking photos for this company, but you'll be able to get the photos for free. And then there's going to be food and blah 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 blah. So we had the article there. Then on the company site, which had again the legitimacy, and this is the real ass. This is one of the assets. We'll talk about basically 8 different forms of assets that you're leveraging with these media. And one of them is literally just legitimacy. So on one end, we've got this media site, which gives us an incredible amount of legitimacy because this is like it's hundreds of thousands of people and a bunch of comments and da 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 da. And then the other side was the legitimacy of the company. It had 250,000. Now, the really cool thing is that media site was a no money down deal. It ended up being a 7-figure business, which was awesome. But the other side of having the 250,000 company, it made it legit as well. And so it's just a really cool combination, which I really hadn't quite calculated everything when we did this. So what we had negotiated with a hotel to rent their rooftop, and it had capacity of about 40 people. And we're like, great, like we should at least get 20, but if we don't, it's all good. So we spent $50 on ads using the fashion site. That all it was basically a link to the news article, a photo and the link to the news article saying, hey, on this news article there's this thing coming up, blah blah blah. So date of the event comes up, and the one of the people comes down or comes up. We're setting things up on the rooftop for the photo shoot. He's the photographer's getting his stuff set up and all this. And she's like from the front desk, she's like, hey, like people are already here. And we're like, man, that's amazing, because it was like hour and a half early before the event, because we had just kind of gotten there or whatever. And I realized that there were a couple people that were waiting there when we walked in, but the last thing on my mind was like they were waiting for us. But there was probably like 10 people, whatever. So she comes up, she's like, "Hey, there are people that are coming," and I was like, "Yeah, I think I saw a couple folks or whatever." It's like it's cool. We told them the time. It's like an hour and a half from now. So maybe like 20 minutes later, the manager comes and he's like, "Hey, there are a lot of people down there," and I was like about how many? He was like 40. And I was like, I think this dude is definitely exaggerating. We're still like an hour out from the event. And, I was like, well, man, there's probably not 40 people here for this. And, I knew we told them there'd be free food, they get the free photos, whatever. So I finally go down there. By the time, because we just weren't ready, I took take a peek down, and the lobby is basically full. I think at that point it may have been about 60 people. And the manager says, like, hey, the capacity for up there is only 40. So we were basically bringing them up like 20 at a time. As we're bringing them up, more and more people came. I think my employee feels like it probably overall would have been about 100 people. At 100, the hotel comes, like, he's got other folks where he's like, hey, like, you like the lobby is now over capacity. This is over capacity. Like, we aren't letting any more of your people in. I'm sorry. You can have a refund. We're not letting anybody else in. And so I ended up hiring one of the models because we were just completely overwhelmed. She went down, got all the information. Like, people were literally just like waiting outside, and she just like apologized, like, hey, you'll have to, well, we'll get in contact with you and do this again at another time. But the beautiful thing was that, leveraging that media, like, that just would not have happened otherwise. Like, if it was just me saying, "Oh, come to, and let me take some photos of you," that would be super sketchy and nobody would come. But it's really the power of media. Now, here is the other part when that I want you to make sure you're looking at this from the key point of a deal maker. Now, some of you may say, "Oh man, like, you got all those girls. Like, what did you do with the girls?" And so somebody who's not a deal maker would try to hit on the girls. But my goal was, hey, you are a beautiful model. Let's be friends, because you probably have more beautiful model friends. And this is really a deal maker lesson as well. Like, our goal is long-term deal flow. It's not trying to close the deal immediately. You want to have long-term deal flow. Listen, if you want more hacks, be sure that you join the Patreon. If you are interested in, really, this is just a component of the consulting for equity course that I put together. It's basically still at a 90% discount. I think it's like the normal price 2,000. It's like $300 if you are a Patreon member. So here is what I would do if I were you. I wouldn't pay the $2,000. I would join the Patreon for $25. Reach out to us saying you are interested in the equity consulting course and get 90% off of that. So check that out. Join us on the Patreon. Be sure, if you are in the Patreon and you haven't registered for the Media Mogul training, as you can see from this, it's going to be some out of the box stuff. Like, I'm not out here teaching just the normal, average, everyday BS. So be sure to join. There'll be some links below. Check it out. Like the video. I don't really ask y'all to do that. I appreciate that you do it anyway. Please like the video. Please comment. I'm only doing this because of the previous comments. You get more out of me. I've had this story forever, but nobody's really commenting. So it's like, all right, no, I just keep, I don't need to share it. I'm good. I'm good. So if you want me to share this stuff, put it in the comments and let me know.